The Master, Fallout 1. The Master is the main villain of the original Fallout. By the time you meet him, he barely resembles anything human. The fight itself is a genuinely nasty encounter for a game from 1997. Even before meeting him, he's already set up a trap for you. In order to reach his control room, you have to go through the Corridor of Revulsion, an area where he implements his psychic attacks. And if you're not wearing a specific item called the Psychic Nullifier, you would get hurt before even getting to him. But once you survive that, the real fight happens. When you finally meet him, the Master sits at 500 HP, wields a Gatling laser, attacks twice per round, and continuously spawns super mutants in the corridor every 2 turns, meaning the longer you take to bring him down, the more enemies pile into the room. Not to mention, he also has 2 Eyebots flanking him on either side that will attack you, but interestingly, you can actually stop the Master's plans without fighting him, and I'd argue this is much more difficult than to actually just fight him. So if it's not ridiculous to say this at this point in the video, yes, there are going to be spoilers ahead. Now, if you've read Vree's autopsy report from the Brotherhood of Steel and have high enough intelligence and speech, you can present evidence to the Master that his super mutants are actually completely sterile, meaning his grand plan to reshape humanity was doomed from the start. You have to be really careful though. A wrong choice in the conversation would turn the interaction hostile, and he's gonna go for your head. One example of a misstep would be saying, you have the evidence even though you don't have the holodisc in your inventory. But a good way to pull the win is to urge the Master to talk to his female mutants, which will finally convince him of the flaw in his plan. However, you're not out of the woods yet. If you gloat at all in his face, the Master will take out his frustration on you, and he's gonna want all that smoke again. Responding with some empathy though will finally convince him to stop his plans. It's actually pretty sad because in his last moments, you can see the remaining sliver of humanity from him when he asks you to leave before it's over. Congrats, you've won the fight without fighting him. Now of course, it's much easier today to play this game because all you have to do is search for a guide on the internet. But if you go into this completely blind, you're probably gonna have to do a few tries before you get the result of not fighting him at all. Red Death, Fallout 4. The Far Harbor DLC has a legend built into it, a fearsome sea monster called the Red Death, blamed for wrecking ships and killing every hunter who's ever gone looking for it. A dying woman named the Mariner wants to hunt it down as her final act, and she needs your help. Once you say you're in, you sail out together to Red Death Island, but not before Avery, the town's leader, tries to stop you. She eventually caves in though, depending on your choices, and she bids you farewell. And then the game begins to work against you. The trip is actually notorious for a persistent, unpatched bug where the screen turns black, your boat vanishes, and then you just spawn in the water and have to swim to the island. But once you meet the creature, you better start praying to your gods, because as a designated legendary monster, it carries boosted stats and an elevated health pool, and Blood Rage Mirelurks are already some of the most durable enemies in the game, with a hardened carapace that absorbs a serious amount of damage before you start making any real progress. One player even reported that it took down both boats, forcing them to abandon the mission and swim back to Far Harbor, while using the Mariner's mangled corpse as the flotation device. I mean, that's what the Mariner would have wanted, because joking aside, none of that happens. The Red Death is actually just a tiny little crab that's barely bigger than a dog. It's a Blood Rage Mirelurk that isn't even hostile when you find it. And when you do engage with it, well, it dies in one shot. This is probably the main reason nobody returned to the town after encountering it. They were simply too ashamed, much like the Mariner. Frank Horrigan, Fallout 2. Frank Horrigan is the kind of enemy that makes you question all of your life choices up to that point. He's the final boss of Fallout 2 and serves as the Enclave's most dangerous operative, a former Secret Service agent who was exposed to the forced evolutionary virus during a wasteland patrol, slowly mutated into a super mutant, experimented on for years by Enclave scientists, and then fitted with a custom-engineered suit of power armor and redeployed as a weapon. You meet him at the very end of the game on the Enclave oil rig, right before the final push to bring the whole operation down. There's no avoiding him. He's standing directly in your way, and he's not moving. What makes Horrigan so dangerous is the sheer brutality of his stat line. He has a staggering 999 HP, the most that you can have in the game, and carries 2 unique weapons that are unobtainable, the End Boss Plasma Gun and the End Boss Knife. He also has perfect scores in the special stats, which means he ranks 10 over 10 in strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. That ensures he's really the indomitable antagonist he's hyped up to be, but also thanks to his high agility points, he's able to attack twice per round, which in Fallout 2's turn-based system means he can absolutely shred you before you've had a chance to respond if you're underprepared. To make things worse, the room is lined with turrets ready to pummel you while you're busy with Frank. Still, with some preparation and strategy, you can defeat him, and a very violent death animation will play. Needless to say, Frank Horrigan is one of the best antagonists in the Fallout universe. Legate Lanius, Fallout New Vegas. Legate Lanius is the most feared military commander in Caesar's Legion. a man who earned the nickname the Monster of the East. Now, the game gives you a couple of options. You could either actively try and fight him, or try and talk him down. However, in the latter option, the game gives you a series of high speech and barter checks, topping out at 100, where you have to convince him that marching west is a trap, that the territory is too large to hold, or that enemies within the Legion itself are already plotting against him. Getting through those checks without triggering combat requires the kind of character build most players don't have on a first playthrough. You can also convince him to send his guards away so he can fight you one-on-one. While this doesn't make him easier, at the very least you're only dealing with one enemy. In combat, Lanius is one of the most difficult because the game has stacked almost every possible advantage in his favor. He's enormous, fast, and relentless, and his sword has a nasty habit of knocking you back. You can't back away and create space either, because he moves faster than the player character and will simply run you down. The real frustration sets in as the fight drags on. Once you've damaged him enough, he breaks off the fight completely, retreats out of reach, and comes back a few seconds later with every injury fully healed, fresh, and ready to start over. But persist enough, and you can eventually defeat him. Legendary Bloatfly, Fallout New Vegas Old World Blues. The Old World Blues DLC sends you to Big MT, a pre-war research facility filled with rogue science experiments and genuinely bizarre horrors. Most of them you can handle. And then you find the mysterious cave. Yes, that's actually the name of the cave. Inside it lives the legendary Bloatfly, and if you stumble into this encounter unprepared, it will kill you so fast you'll barely understand what happened. Now, regular Bloatflies are actually easy to kill. You can pretty much just punch them right out of the air, no problem. However, this peculiar one is the largest and the strongest variant of its species. The creature is surrounded by an intimidating, glowing, pale green aura, and it flies at a height that makes melee weapons nearly useless against it. But what makes this boss genuinely terrifying is its projectile attack, a plasma-like bolt fired from its abdomen that deals 300 damage, which is equivalent to the damage output of a Deathclaw alpha male. Even in power armor and buffed with Med-X, most players are dead in a handful of hits. Additionally, it has twice the health of the legendary Deathclaw and deals nearly twice the damage, and when you finally do manage to kill it, the thing explodes like a plasma grenade, leaving a pile of goo where the corpse should be. You can target its brain in VATS, but crippling it doesn't weaken the creature. It causes it to frenzy, making it even more aggressive and harder to control. There's no quest that sends you here, no warning, and no build-up. You walk into a cave, and this thing is just waiting. Ulysses, Fallout New Vegas, Lonesome Road. Ulysses is one of the most quietly threatening characters in the entire Fallout series. He's the main antagonist of the Lonesome Road DLC, a former courier, former Legion Frumentarius, and a man who has a deeply personal grudge against you specifically, even before you've exchanged a single word. The entire DLC is built around going through the quests to reach him while he delivers monologues over a repaired EDE unit, daring you to keep coming. While it's surely intimidating and builds him up to be this incredible enemy that can stand toe-to-toe with you, he sure likes talking to you for someone so mysterious. By the time you reach Ulysses' temple and the confrontation finally happens, you have the option to talk him down through a chain of speech checks that max out at 100, one of the hardest dialogue checks in the game. If your build can't clear those checks, or you say the wrong thing, well, you're fighting him. And Ulysses is unlike any other human enemy in the series. He's significantly faster than a normal human character and is one of only 4 NPCs in Fallout history to have a maximum score of 10 in every single special attribute. He has over 1000 HP, which no other human character in the game comes close to. He's impervious to knockdown, meaning builds that rely on stagger-based combat become significantly less effective against him. What makes the fight particularly grueling is that he's escorted by 2 iBots, a medical one that heals him faster than a stim pack, and a repair one on top of that, and if you destroy them, they just come back. So the only way to permanently shut them down is to break off from the fight, navigate down the catwalks on either side of the arena through laser tripwires, and pass a repair or science check at hidden control stations, all while Ulysses is still coming for you. He also carries stealth boys, meaning he can disappear mid-fight entirely, which combined with how fast he moves makes keeping track of him a genuine problem. And even if you manage to talk him down rather than fight him, it's not over. A wave of marked men floods the temple either way, and you're fighting through all of them, whether Ulysses is standing beside you or lying dead on the floor. The Scorchbeast Queen, Fallout 76. The Scorchbeast Queen is Fallout 76's endgame boss, and everything about how you access her is designed to make sure you've earned the right to be there. She doesn't just spawn out in the open world. To trigger the fight, players have to complete a lengthy mission chain called Mission Countdown, and then deliberately drop a nuclear warhead on a specific location called Fisher Site Prime. Once the nuke drops, the public event Scorched Earth begins, and you have 30 minutes to kill her before the timer runs out. While you can solo this beast, 8 or more players are the recommended minimum for this fight. That's how much of a nightmare the Queen is. She has 32,767 HP, is immune to radiation and nuclear blasts. She also won't land unless you force her to by crippling one of her wings, which means the entire fight can be spent chasing an an airborne target across a radioactive crater while she fires sonic attacks, strafes the area with lingering poison fog, and calls down waves of scorched enemies via an explosive shockwave when she eventually does touch the ground. If your group isn't dealing damage fast enough, she simply starts healing herself. Whole lobbies of players have emptied every round of ammunition they had, and still watched the event timer expire with her still alive. Overboss Colter, Fallout 4, Nuka World. Overboss Colter is the first major obstacle in the Nuka World DLC, the leader of 3 raider factions who runs his operation from inside a rigged arena called the Kolakars Arena, where he uses his position to murder anyone unlucky enough to reach him. To even get to him, you have to survive the Gauntlet, a long trap-filled death course that the raiders send challengers through for entertainment. By the time you reach the arena, you're already beaten up, and Colter is waiting in a suit of custom electrically powered Overboss power armor that makes him essentially invincible to conventional weapons. And that's the core problem. His power armor generates an active energy shield that absorbs all incoming damage, meaning guns, melee weapons, explosives, none of it works while the shield is up. The only way to bring it down is with the Thirst Zapper, a modified squirt gun that the Raider Porter Gauge slips you before the fight, specifically designed to short-circuit Colter's armor. You have to soak him with water until the shield collapses, deal as much damage as you can in the window before it recharges, and then repeat the process. It sounds simple enough, but Colter doesn't stand still. His level scales to match the player, and the arena offers very little room to maneuver while you're trying to alternate between a water gun and your actual weapons. Players who try to brute force through the shield without using the Thirst Zapper will simply find that nothing they do makes any difference at all. The Shipbreaker. Fallout 4, Far Harbor. Far Harbor has a lot of threatening creatures, and most of them you can track down and fight on your own terms. The Shipbreaker is not one of those. She's a legendary fog crawler, a massive crustacean-like creature that has been haunting Mount Desert Island for decades, killing anything that crosses her path not out of hunger, but out of what old Longfellow describes as pure viciousness. The name came from the wrecked boats that kept washing up on shore with claw and bite marks on them. Getting the fight to trigger is the first problem. The Shipbreaker quest is completely random. It activates either by listening to a random Shipbreaker signal that your Pip-Boy picks up, or when a settler reports a sighting near one of your settlements on the island, and if you miss the window, she simply moves on. But when you do find her, the fight is brutal. She has a minimum of 2,200 HP and 4,000 points of physical damage resistance, making her one of the tankiest enemies in the base game and all of its DLC. Fog crawlers are already fast and hit hard, and the Shipbreaker is the most extreme version of that, a creature that combines exceptional natural armor with the kind of speed that closes distance before you've had time to react. The reward from old Longfellow for completing the hunt is a unique harpoon gun. Given how much effort this fight demands, it feels like the least he could do. And that's Fallout's most difficult bosses explained. Which boss gave you the most trouble? Drop them in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Fallout lore dives.